Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 MPA Conference and Hall of Fame induction. My name is Faith D'Ambrose, and I am your MC for the next hour or so. While we can't get together this year to talk in person, to talk about all that's happened this past year, and boy, has there been a lot to talk about, it's great that we are at least able to get together virtually. And I'm happy to see all the people in attendance here today. So without further ado, why don't we begin our induction ceremony with a few words from the 2019 Journalist of the Year, Eric Russell.
Hello, Maine Press Association members. Eric Russell here with the Portland Press Herald, coming to you from my home in Brunswick. It's been a strange time for me, I think for everybody. Over the last 7 months, our jobs have gotten more difficult, but also more vital. When the pandemic hit, I think people started turning to newspapers more and more as the source for comprehensive information about what was going on. I don't know exactly how or when it happened, but it seems like I went from young hotshot in the newsroom trying to get stories on page one to cranky veteran overnight. And old colleagues would probably say I was cranky from the beginning, but no matter how long I've been doing this, I always feel like I still have so much to learn. One of the things I think more and more about recently is that if my reporting isn't solid, no amount of good writing is going to save it. If the reporting is complete and airtight, the writing often comes easy. The other thing I've learned is listen to your editor. They aren't out to squelch your creativity. They want what you want, the best possible story to be read by the broadest possible audience. All right, that one's still a work in progress, but it's still good advice. I hope I never feel like I have nothing left to learn of this craft. I also hope that by next year things will have returned to normal somewhat, and then we're able to see each other in person and do this job in a little more traditional way. But until then, I hope everyone continues chasing stories that reflect the best and sometimes worst of Maine. Thanks for listening.
We've got two inductees this year, both of whom are more than deserving. Our first is Terry Carlisle. Terry is the former general manager of the Ellsworth American and the Mount Desert Islander. She is well known for her pioneering approaches to advertising sales that continue to serve both papers well. Terry retired in 2019, and if you follow her on Facebook, you will see that she is living her very best life in retirement. So let's hear from people who want to talk about Terry and from Terry herself.
Hi, everyone. Stephen Fay here. I worked with Terry for 23 years at the Ellsworth American. And as I think about her today, I'm reminded of what Emerson had to say about what it is to have succeeded. To laugh much and often, to earn the respect of intelligent people, and to leave your community a better place, all of which she has done. Plus, making the Ellsworth American a great place to work. So congratulations to you, Terry, my dear colleague and best friend.
When I first joined the American in 1986, Terry and three others and I shared office space on the third floor of the Main Street building. And Terry was the only one who stayed around after 5 o'clock. And she was the accounts receivable clerk in those days. We then told the part-time advertising director that Terry would be joining the staff. And in 2 weeks, she was our star salesperson. And it went on from there. I have always referred to her as Exhibit A. And the reason is that she is the best example that I have of someone who has, that I've mentored, who has developed into an effective manager. Terry, a few months after she started selling, the part-time advertising director came in drunk for the second time after lunch, and I fired him on the spot. Went over to see Mr. Wiggins in his office and told him that I'd just fired his advertising director. And he said, well, who's going to take his place? And I said, Terry is. And he said, oh, okay. And it went on from there. The next job that Terry got promoted to was business manager, and then later general manager. So you can see that's my Exhibit A. defense rests.
I always thought that having a great job, being good at it, having fun at it was its own reward, but being inducted into the Maine Press Association Hall of Fame is certainly huge icing on that wonderful cake. Hale Joy got me the job. He said to Russell, "You know Terry, she's that little dark-haired girl at the Holiday Inn that waits on us when we have lunch in there every day. And her dad is a successful contractor. Her mother worked in the Pentagon." I think that was the kicker. Sorry, Dad. We had the most fun. We talked to Warren Berger and Ben Bradley and Walter Cronkite, and then we had the fellow with Tourette syndrome that came in every week with a letter to the editor, and one day he went down in the basement and washed his hair in our sink with lava soap. It was just a riot all the time. It was wonderful. And then Alan came to the paper and bought the paper, and after a few months he said, "You're going to go into the sales department." And I said, "Nope, not me." And he said, "Oh, yeah, you'll love it. You'll be good at it." I said, "I don't want to do that." He said, "Well, you're going to do it." So I did it. And I got good at it. I liked it. And the more I liked it, the better I got at it. And that was fun, too. And then Alan put me on the management team, and I eventually became general manager. We just had the best fun thinking up ideas. And we all knew exactly what the business was. The business was to provide the residents of Hancock County with the information that they needed to be productive, happy citizens. And we were very, very good at it. At one point, we had 45,000 readers in both the American and the Islander. And so we did a great job, and we had a lot of fun. And it was important work. It's still important work. And will always be necessary, will always be needed. I know it's a slog, it's guerrilla warfare, but we will get there. And I'm just convinced that you all are as flexible and as talented and creative as any journalists and newspaper people in the country. So
our second inductee is the late Arthur Guzman, who left a legacy of another kind. A longtime journalism professor, Arthur Guzman made a lasting impact on all those that he taught. You'll hear from one student today. There are a number of them here. To introduce Arthur Guzman is his daughter, Lee Zelog. Take it away, Lee.
Arthur O. Guzman was destined to be in the newspaper industry. As a child, one of his first jobs was that of a paperboy. I've chosen to talk to you today about my dad from the garden at the home that I share with my husband, Tom. My dad loved gardens, and he loved our surroundings. He called it the jungle. So I'm really pleased to be here in the jungle to talk to you about my dad. A few highlights from his achievements at the University of Maine include faculty advisor to the Maine campus newspaper from 1973 to 1992, where he inspired and led students to develop the paper from a weekly to a daily publication. Under his leadership, the Maine campus newspaper also won several Maine Press Association awards. He developed and led mass media communications classes to England and the Soviet Union to examine the fundamental difference in journalism based on the freedoms of press or lack thereof. Over the years, he took over 300 students to London and another 200 students to the Soviet Union. His greatest joy as a teacher came from advising students on classes and life in general. His focus was always on helping the student with their life objectives in a meaningful manner, as evident by his achievement as an academic advisor, advising over 100 students every year, when the average was usually only 20. The students were always Art's top priority when he taught journalism at the University of Maine from 1973 to 1992, when he retired Professor Emeritus. To characterize my dad's accomplishments is best done by sharing the words from the students who best knew the influence he had not only on them, but on the journalism community. The first is Alicia Johnson Nichols, the UMaine class of 1982. As a journalism graduate, I was delighted to have Art as my faculty advisor for all 4 years. He was always focused. He gave his full attention to our conversation, which as a young undergraduate was something I cherished. The study trip he led to London for his students was a dream come true for all of us. How many journalism students had the opportunity to meet and visit with Peter Jennings in his London office? Arts did, and we all treasured him for the gifts of those extraordinary experiences. From Steve Parker, UMaine class of 1975, Art was an exceptional mentor. We were all tremendously fond of him, and he was exactly what we needed at Orono. We would have walked through hot coals for him. In addition to guiding thousands of students at UMO, he lovingly guided our family, and we are so proud to be together celebrating him today. There are two people who are not with us today physically, but are very close in spirit, and that is, of course, my dad, who passed away in 2007, and my mom, who passed away earlier this year. I know my dad would want to extend congratulations, as does our entire family, to Terry Carlisle for being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year with him. Terry, my dad, always had great respect for Mr. Wiggins. Congratulations. In closing, one of the many stories I would hear from students when they realized I was Art's daughter was the fact that he would sing in class. He sang various old radio jingles to reinforce the importance of making a memorable ad. So no story about Art's teaching would be complete without singing one of his favorites. So anyone out there who remembers, please sing along with me. Ready? We feed our doggy Thrive, oh, he's very much alive, oh, full of pep and vim. If you want a peppy pup, then you'd better hurry up, buy Thrive-O for him. To accept this recognition, it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Dan Warren, one of my dad's many favorite students. Dan not only wrote my dad's nomination for the Hall of Fame, but also won the Maine Press Association's best column in a local paper, the Maine campus, in 1977. Dan, my dad would be very pleased to have you accept this recognition on his behalf, on behalf of all the accomplishments you achieved together. Thank you, Dan, and congratulations, Dad. We are so proud of you.
I'm happy to accept this award on behalf of Art Guzman and his family from the Maine Press Association Hall of Fame Committee. It's probably a good thing that Art's passed away and he's not here, because he probably wouldn't like being recognized. That wasn't his cup of tea. Art was a doer. I know there's a popular phrase that those who can do, those who can't teach. That just wasn't the case with Art. He had a great newspaper career in Pittsburgh, and then he found himself in Orono, Maine. And it's a good thing that he found himself there. Art was not afraid to kick our ass at the student newspaper at Orono, and he was not afraid to be Dutch uncle, and he was not afraid to be your biggest cheerleader or biggest critic, and sometimes both. I remember that when a student would write a story for the campus paper and they had interviewed a high-level university official and clearly hadn't asked some question about why the person did or didn't do something, Art would say, well, the reason why you didn't ask it is because you were scared. You didn't want to offend them or embarrass them, and he let us know that journalism was a tough job. You needed information to write a story, and the only way to get the information was to ask the tough questions. He also, the flip side, he would make sure that we were fair to people. I remember there was a particular professor who called in sick, and then he was seen that day downtown Orono doing errands or something, and we were just delighted that we were going to print this story and I guess embarrass the guy. And I said, no, don't do that. You don't know what happened here. This person could have had a medical emergency with a child and maybe then did some errands afterwards. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Great lessons from a great person. He turned us into a daily newspaper. He said, the University of Maine is a Division I school. You ought to have a Division I paper. Football, baseball, basketball is Division I. Journalism has to be too. Rest in peace, Art. Thank you very much for the recognition. Well deserved. And on behalf of his family, thank you.
Well, thank you to Lee and to Dan. And if you're paying attention to the chat, you will see that some of Maine's most distinguished journalists were students of arts at the University of Maine. So there's not much better than we can say there. And finally, we'd like to thank our conference sponsors, Mitchell Tardy Jackson and Broadreach Public Relations, for their ongoing support. So we look forward to seeing you later today at the live auction and award ceremony. Have a great day, everyone, and make sure to check out the auction. Thank you.